7.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for October 15th, 2025. Thank you for joining me. We have some stuff to talk about here in the next hour, and we're going to get back into the Mike Shildt Padres situation because the Kevin Acee article, there's always a fear for me, at least in sports talk radio or just in radio in general, that you talk about something and what you talk about can somewhat be wiped away in the posting of an article about an hour and a half after your show. So I sat here and I talked about Mike Shildt and how he was able to make a brave decision to retire before his mental health got so bad he couldn't deal with it anymore. Well, I still think that message I shared last night stands, but that the message is take care of your mental health and prioritize your mental health. But we have a little bit more to talk about here. And if you haven't heard, Kevin Acee put out an article in the Union Tribune kind of talking about Mike Shildt's time with the Padres, and he quoted up to 20 sources, or he didn't quote, but he said up to 20 sources had shared some things with Kevin Acee about what it was like to work with Mike Shildt, work under Mike Shildt. It says 12 of them who work with Shildt on a daily basis have in recent months characterized Shildt as unyieldingly demanding of his coaching staff and the team support staff, and as having a tendency to micromanage and possessing a quick temper that is easily triggered by questioning or feedback. Which, if it's true that all happened, which I mean, I can understand it happening. I'm not someone who thinks everything is going to be hunky-dory all the time, and it's just not like that. I could say here at the radio station, not in a very long time. I think Adam, I had issues with Adam and some of the things that he was asking me to do, and they were all really fair things. So we've gotten past this and everything. We haven't, fought in a very long time. Adam and I are in a very good place, which is why I'm telling this story. But we've had some, back and forth before. Chris and Tony, definitely we've had some back and forth. Like I can't even tell you, it's not a lot, but it has happened where we get into big arguments in the break, and then we come on the show and everything's all fine. So that's where I can understand why the stress of a season would make Mike Shildt go off the deep end from time to time. Now, I do think there is some truth to that because there are so many people, and I had heard those things, but I wasn't able to confirm them. But the timing of this article is what is a little strange to me, and not so much the timing, but the content of the article is a little bit strange to me, because this is something I think that Kevin Acee had worked on for a long time. This is not something that he had his, he wrote right after the Tuesday press conference with AJ Preller. This is something that he's been working on. So maybe it was a thought around the organization. But Chris said something earlier that I did feel, during the season, or at least, let me just say, I did feel exactly this feeling when I read the article from Kevin Acee. But isn't this kind of what people wanted? Isn't this what people want out of their manager? Isn't this what people want out of their team? Is that there is someone who takes it so seriously that there is discord? And how many people out there could say that they absolutely love their boss all the time? I don't think that you can love your boss all the time, and I don't think that everybody out there does. And when I left my jobs, I could have said some mean things about my bosses because I was feeling that way. But I do not think for one second that if those people were being treated so poorly that Mike Shildt was coming down on them and being a tyrant, I think that those people would have found other jobs. I think we would have noticed what was going on. I think we would have noticed some of the discord. And I keep getting this this message. I've had this message texted me a couple times, and I'm not a fan. The message basically is, but does that excuse him for being the way that he is or was? First off, I have to say I'm not really sure how he was because I wasn't there, but um, I'm not a fan of treating other people poorly, even if it's for the greater good. I personally think that things work when it's a little bit when there are constructive things happening. I think that it's better to work in an environment where you're encouraged. No one wants to be the person who is. No one wants to be the person who's like, "Oh no, the boss is here. He's going to come down. He's going to yell at me." If these were constructive conversations, and even a coach in the Kevin Acee article said that it made him a better coach. So I can't say that Mike Shildt was this article to me, and Kevin Acee did go get he did go talk to people who are in the know, so I at least appreciate that. But this whole article to me is just something to fill the news cycle. I don't really think there's anything going on here. And I again am not a fan of berating someone, which is what was reported by Kevin Acee. Not a fan of that. You cannot treat people poorly like that just because you're in a position of power. Now, why was he harder on the coaching staff than he was the players? That is a fair question, I think. I think that if you think about that question, I don't know the answer, but I kind of have a feeling that there's some sort of truth to the fact that maybe Mike Shildt, didn't have that Major League Baseball playing career. I'm not saying any of this is true. These are just my thoughts on things. And so it's like Mike Shildt wanted the clubhouse to self-govern, which I think does happen. It does self-govern, but I do think that a manager sometimes needs to go and talk to a player and kind of light a fire under them if they need a fire lit under them. So I'm not a fan of someone, and in this case it's Mike Shildt. I'm not a fan of someone taking out their frustrations on a coaching staff member rather than going to talk to people directly. For a long time here at the radio station, people went through me to get to Tony, and I was not a fan of it because I did not want to be the middleman of all of the messages. And I thought that at certain points, maybe someone should have said to other people that were using me as his middleman, Tony's middleman, maybe they should have stood up for me. But what I'm saying is, no one really is blaming me for the lack of Tony not responding or something like that. I'm hoping this makes sense, but it's not. I don't think it's making sense, actually. Maybe I'm on the right track. I'm trying to think of a different way to go about this because I know that people are thinking you're just on the Padres station, and so you need to say these things. That is absolutely not true. I do think that there was probably some bad working relationships, but it doesn't, in my opinion, mean that we have to trash Mike Shildt forever because of this. I mean, how many times during the season people said that these guys don't care? These guys don't care. These guys don't care. Why do we keep getting mad at players when they do care? And when they show, or players, coaches, when they show us he cares? Like, I don't understand the double standard of that. And it really bothers me because you can sit there and you can say every single day, look at Fernando. He looks like he doesn't care. But then, Fernando starts destroying something in the dugout. It's like, oh, that's too much. That guy needs to calm down a little bit. I think that maybe in the end, when Mike Shildt looks back on this, I think that maybe there will be some growth in him to say, hey, maybe some of that stuff I needed to be the one to deliver the message to the player. Like, instead of having his and through the article, they also said this, which was Sometimes they went out for drills. Mike Shildt wasn't very clear on what he wanted, and then he would get mad and yell at the coach. Okay, that is not cool, because you need to, if you're going to be a manager and you're going to be a leader, you have to be the number one person that is communicating and making sure the message is being communicated. And it doesn't sound like sometimes that was the case. And is it misplaced anger by Mike Shildt to take it out on the coaching staff? Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm not condoning that whatsoever. But I don't really get why we're mad at Mike Shildt for caring. Did he go over the line? If there's something that comes out later that was like he attacked someone, and I'm just throwing it out there, it's not like there's any truth to this. But if he was verbally abusive to the point where it was so bad that there were some internal conversations going on between HR and Mike Shildt and whatever, then that's not good. And if I hear any of that, then I will say that. And I will say I'm sorry, because I believe that Mike Shildt wasn't that person. And I still believe Mike Shildt wasn't that person. But all of these conversations that we're having and all of these things that people are presenting in fact are not fact, because we were not there. These are all rumors. Yes, Kevin Acee talked to people. But what if that person didn't like Mike Shildt and this was their time to get the bad thing that they wanted to say about him? And the reason I'm even focusing on Kevin Acee's article so much is because he actually did do that work. Everybody out there who's saying that they know what happened and they have sources, I got one of the closest sources to the Padres in the room. And I have asked Tony, hey, tell me the truth. You know, Tony doesn't know everything, and Tony, I don't think, wants to put himself in that position to know everything. But at the same time, if people like Tony don't know, then there are certain people who have not been working with the team out there that do not know either. And if people are saying that he was fired and the Padres are covering it up, then why would he turn down $4 million? I'm going to always come down to that. Whether or not the Padres pushed him back or pushed him out, or whether or not the Padres fired him and they're covering it up. If there's some secret payment of money to Mike Shildt that we find out later down the road, then I will change my tune. But I'm going to sit here and tell you that Mike Shildt walked away on his own because he left money on the table. If the Padres wanted to get him out of there, they could have fired him and paid him what was left on his contract. But it does get me a little fired up when people who don't really have any proof. It's really easy for me to come on here and, it's really easy for me to come on here and just say things. And then when it's time to prove them, I don't have any proof. And I'm just like, oh, whatever. I heard that. Like, I'm never going to do that. I am never going to come on here and be like, well, I heard that this serious thing that we're talking about was true. No, I don't have the proof. And I'm not going to be that person who's just going to get clicks. And I feel like some people are just getting clicks. Now, that's it. Actually, I was going to go in a different direction, but that's it. If you think that Mike Shildt was fired by the Padres, do you think that he would turn down $4 million, or do you think that they would be now embroiled in some court battle? And maybe we'll hear about that later on. But Kevin Acee said the Padres intended to bring him back, and Mike Shildt was the one who initiated the leaving the team and retiring. So all I got to say is I don't care what people's opinions are. If it doesn't affect me. But then I get sent these tweets. Well, this person said that. Yeah, okay. That person said that. But do they have any proof? I need proof. I need proof. And the proof to me that Mike Shildt was not fired is that he left $4 million on the table. That does not happen in this day and age. If Mike Shildt if he was fired, he would want his money. Everybody would want their money. So there are certain narratives being pushed around the country about this whole Mike Shildt thing. Even The Athletic wrote an article about AJ Preller, and it was a Boston Red Sox writer who I don't believe spent much time here in San Diego around AJ Preller every day. So we're in prime clickbait season. We're in prime. I have sources and I know more than anybody else, even the guys that are actually connected. Like it's prime it's prime clickbait season, people. Just make sure you're reading what is being written and use your brain. That's all I got to say. If you like listening to people speculate and all that, I do too. But I'm not going to take it as fact. And I feel like some people take it as fact. And yes, I do sound fired up because a lot of this is, stacks up on me. And when I get sent tweets from someone who's, sitting on their couch and they're like, well, I heard this. Who cares? Like I said, I've heard a lot of things. I've heard a lot of things that I have not brought to the show because I'm not going to be a person that's just going to say it because it'll get me a little bit of attention. I'm not that person. Ray says, fans don't know what they're talking about. Keep saying stupid things about Manny, which they don't know, and Tatis, for which they don't know a thing about. I agree. I'm 100% with you on that. Clay says, the coaching staff and players are all adults that signed up to get money to play a game. Mike got money to oversee and ensure that all were pulling for the same goal. Yeah. Bosses aren't always the nicest people in the world. So I'm not sure why we're taking this as this is the reason that Mike Shildt or that the Padres didn't, go deep into the playoffs. It's not. It's not. And Mike Shildt was not fired as long as it's in place that he did not take the money. I will always say he was not fired. Ken says, loved Mike. Good for him when he needs to leave. It's only him that knows what he needs, not us. KG says, I hear Mike was forcibly retired because he discovered birds aren't real. See, that's funny. That's funny, KG. All right, we're going to go to break. But I have a little bit more to say about this. I want to talk about one thing that was written by Kevin Acee that I can firsthand be a part of and talk about, and that's the way that Mike Shildt handled the media. I think there is something to learn from that, and I will talk about when we get back here on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan.
The best way
calmed down slightly. Got a few more tweets in the break. Mostly are saying the same thing that I'm saying. Like, there's no way that a guy is going to leave $4 million on the table if he was fired. If he was fired, if any of us were fired from our jobs and they owed us money, we would go after it. So, yeah, that's where I stop. That's where I stop. This is the Skraby Show. I'm Matt Skraby. You could watch the show if you want on Facebook, 97.3 The Fan. You can go to the 97.3 The Fan SD Twitter, or not Twitter, I'm sorry, 97.3 The Fan on YouTube. You could also go to at the Skraby Show on YouTube, and that will bring you to the Skraby Show Scrabinator page. Matt Skraby on X, and then 97.3 The Fan on Twitch. The game has taken a turn. In game 3 for the ALCS, the Blue Jays are now up 6-2 over the Mariners. This has been kind of a weird series. Both games won by the Mariners in Toronto. Now the Blue Jays winning in Seattle. That's a long flight, by the way. If you're going to choose two teams to play in a series where they have to keep flying back and forth, Seattle and Toronto are like one of the two of the farthest places from each other. It would be like if the Marlins I know this would never happen, but it would be like if the Marlins and the Mariners had to play, like, say, in the World Series. They wouldn't face in the LCS, is what I meant. But that's another long flight. I would not be happy with all of that stuff flying back and forth all the time. That'd be ridiculous. All right. I wanted to talk about one more thing with Mike Shildt before we moved on from it. And that would be, I can only talk about how he treated the media because I never saw the behind the scenes stuff. But with the media, there were times it got cringy. And so I can see how someone on the inside, a coach or a staff member, I can see how this would happen. I can, because of the interactions that were in the media. I did feel like there was a defensiveness to answering some questions, and I wasn't really sure why. And I talked about it the other day when we posted our first Gwen and Chris YouTube video that was off the air. Just go to Gwen and Chris SD on YouTube, and you can see it. But we talked about the reasoning behind Mike Shildt leaving, and we did talk about the media part of it. And personally, when I was listening to Mike Shildt, I personally, I just wanted to learn why he did what he did. I wasn't really going to criticize him unless it was egregious, but asking questions as to why Luis Arraez was hitting second all season and then getting perturbed when someone asked about Ryan O'Hearn, that's more of what I'm talking about here. And ultimately, he doesn't owe the media anything, but fans make up a big part of sports, and I do think that some questions from fans do deserve to be answered because you just want to know what's going on with your team. And this is something that major league managers have to deal with every single day. And they have to meet with the media twice a day for the most part, before the game, after the game. And you see these questions being asked all around baseball. So I'm not sure why these sorts of questions were such an issue. I'm not sure why these questions were so triggering, but it was never coming from a place of personal, bringing it up to make them look bad personally. It was never like that. To me, people getting defensive over certain questions is because there's more behind the scenes to it. Like, you just don't get mad over nothing the first time you're asked a question. But when you're hearing coaches from the Acee article say that they were trying to maybe, switch some things up, and Mike Shildt would get mad and he would take it personally. I could see that happening just because of what was happening in front of the media. So I think that in the end, the way that he dealt with the media, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't. And his job is to put the best team on the field, make decisions that help the team win, and he did that. But part of his job as well is to talk to the media and talk to fans. And I think I think that is something that was not as great as I wanted it to be. Bob Melvin, say what you want about Bob Melvin. He was pretty good with the media. He was really open to questions that were being asked. I just don't understand why there needed to be the defensive posture. I'll go back to it was last year, 2024. The Padres were, winning 3, losing 4, winning 1, losing 2, winning 2, losing 1, winning 3, losing 2. And it was kind of a roller coaster. And so it was asked, this season's kind of been a roller coaster. And Mike Shildt was not happy with that question. And that was kind of the first one I was like, whoa, like, why did that trigger so much? I don't know. I don't know why that triggered so much, because it was at the time a roller coaster. And as we said in the Gwen and Chris YouTube video, or as I said, like, some of these questions are now coming from some of these questions now are coming from fans, because that's who is reading the articles that are being put up. And that's why I read the Kevin Acee newsletter, because I want to know certain things. And I feel like there could have been a better open line of communication, because I did feel sometimes, personally, I felt that I was my not my intelligence, but it was kind of like not attacked. I don't want to say attacked, but it was kind of like, whoa, why you gotta talk to me like that? And that's something I was not a fan of. And that's something that if Mike Shildt does manage again, hopefully there's some, learning from that for the next team. And I know that everybody's pointing to the Cardinals right now. Well, the Cardinals, he had philosophical differences. Well, maybe, now that he's gone to 2 places and he was let go by one of them, and now he has left another one, it really just tells me that maybe he is a hard person to work for. And who hasn't worked for a difficult boss? All of us have worked for a difficult boss. Now, if I was ever a boss of that many people, I would want people to feel comfortable around me. I would want to listen to people. I think that sometimes when you get to a certain position, you have to protect that position. So if you're questioning the manager, that means you're questioning his ability to do the job. I'm not saying that he said that or felt that. I'm saying that because I think that. Like, if you come at him and you say, hey, this has been a little bit of a roller coaster, and he, in his mind, doesn't think that, and he also is taking it personally, then boom. That's where the frustration comes from on his side. And so, again, I never saw anything in the clubhouse about Mike Shildt talking down to a staffer. Again, not a fan of that. But what Chris said earlier is 100% right. What do we all want? We want wins. We want wins. And so Mike Shildt delivered those wins. Maybe behind the scenes it was a little bit more hectic and chaotic and frantic than we thought. But if he is ultimately doing what he's doing to win, then why are we trying to tear him down so much? Hey, why is no one looking at some of the coaches and being like, well, were you trying hard enough? Like, it seems like we're all piling on Mike Shildt just because he's the one who left and is out of town now. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of piling on someone just because it's the easy it's an easy way of piling, or it's an easy way of criticizing someone is piling on. I don't like to pile on. It's not something that I do. But hey, some of you wanted Mike Shildt gone. He's gone. So going forward, unless more things come out about the tenure of Mike Shildt here, I think going forward we have to focus on what's next for the team. And what's next for the team is finding a manager, and finding a manager that's a good manager, and finding a manager that can lead this team to the World Series. But I had someone tell me this a month ago or so, and they're a Padres fan, but they say, I think some Padres fans are more upset that they're not right than the team actually winning. So when they're doing their negative thing on the internet and the team's, winning, they don't get the same traction because they want the team to be bad. And I'm not pointing fingers, but there are certain fans out there that want the team to be bad so that they can be right. Looking at some of the chats. Jacob says Fernando, Tatis Jr., Luis Ariz, and Manny Machado combined to hit 4 for 33. Mike was not the problem. That's true. That's true. KG says basically he was asked the same question twice and it was just annoying and unnecessary. His reaction is kind of understandable considering he gave a very long answer the first time. Jacob also says, I just want a championship, man. Just want a championship. Yeah, I don't know why people are so mad. I don't know why people are so mad at Mike Shildt. As long as he didn't attack someone or assault someone. I mean, there are lines for me in verbally assaulting. I just want, if it was a productive workplace that had some disagreements in between, that sounds like a normal workplace for me. Sounds like a pretty darn normal workplace. All right. That's it for the Mike Shildt stuff for today. When we get back, we're going to talk fantasy football because Yahoo Sports put out projections, the odds. If you are this record, these are your odds based on 2024 to make the playoffs. So if you have a fantasy football team, stick around because I'll tell you whether or not you're going to make the playoffs on the other side on 97.3 The Fan.
Ben and Woods.
Matt Skraby with you. I don't know why I said it that way. Matt Skraby with you here on 97.3 The Fan. Skraby Show. Thank you for joining me. Getting some nice things in the break. I also said on the chat that I sound like a woman. And if I do, I'm embracing it because I can't change my voice. We still have a Halloween show or movie that I'm going to recommend. We also have a daily gripe. But when I went to break, I said that Yahoo Sports put out odds of making the fantasy playoffs, depending on what record you are, based on their 2024 season results. And I'll get to that in just a second. But every time I look back up at the TV to watch the ALCS, the Blue Jays have put more runs on the board. So it's the bottom of the fifth right now, 1 out. Toronto is winning 8-2 over the Mariners. And like I said, it's kind of weird. Mariners took 2 in Toronto. Now the Blue Jays are looking to take 1 in Seattle. But I outside of the Dodgers being so annoyingly good, this has been a pretty good playoffs. There have been some really good games. There haven't been many blowout games that are just not fun to watch. And for the most part, I've been pretty entertained by the playoffs this year. I am someone who depends on I got distracted there for a second. Depends on storylines of the game, whether or not I'm going to sit down and watch an entire playoff game. Now that they're in the ALCS, NLCS, I'm definitely going to be sitting down in the World Series to watch it. But leading up to those two, I will monitor games, but I won't necessarily watch them. But I have enjoyed every single game that we have watched this year, this playoffs. Robert says, don't listen to that. You do you, bro. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. I saw there was a famous person, not famous, but there was a sports reporter out there who posted all this stuff about how people come at them for their jobs and how easy it is and how wrong they are and all this other stuff. And then I saw a comment that said, why do you people with a platform always recognize the bad comments but not the good comments? And I thought that was pretty interesting because it's true. And the reason I think I do that is because it's really, really, really hard for me to look away from someone trashing me. It is. And then when someone says something nice, I take it and I appreciate it, but then I don't ruminate about it like I do with a negative comment. So that's why sometimes I call out the negative people, because it's fun to put them on the spot. And it's also fun to feel like I'm getting some of my power back. So that's why sometimes I call out negative people. And there are plenty of those negative people right now. Plenty. All right. Odds of making the fantasy playoffs, according to Yahoo. If you're 6-0, which if you are, good for you, you have a 97.1% chance to make the playoffs. If you're 5-1, still a great record, 90.7% chance to make the playoffs. Now, I'm 4-2 in both of my leagues. 4-2 is where it starts to drop a little bit. 76.1%. 76.1. It goes from 90 at 5-1 to 76 at 4-2. Now, if you're 3-3, it cuts even more. 53.7%. So you have a better than half chance of getting into the playoffs. And then if you're dreaded 2-4, 29.9%. If you're 1-5, 12.8%. And if you're 0-6, 5%. I got to know which leagues have a player that's 0-6 last year and made the playoffs, because that is impressive. I have to really give it to those people, because 0-6 is a very, very lonely place. Mime Junior Ruiz says 3-3. You have a 53.7% chance to make the playoffs. The first question, though, on this post: what if you're 3-3, but you have Rashee Rice coming off the bench this week? I have Rashee Rice coming off the bench this week, and he's going to replace my terrible wide receivers that I have. T. Higgins has done absolutely nothing this year. T. Higgins has done absolutely nothing this year. And he doesn't really have a quarterback to help him out. My other receiver, I think it's so bad I can't even remember the other receiver. So I'm getting on my app right now. Oh, it's Devontae Smith. Not great. Juwan Jennings has not been great. Ricky Pearsall has been good when he's in there, but he's been hurt. I got some injuries to deal with. Rod says he's 4-2. Mime Jr. says I'm 3-3 and I have the GOAT, Rico Dowdle. Well, Rico has been really good. That's one of those players where I saw him on the waiver wire and I was like, should I pick him up? Should I? And then I didn't, and now I regret it because he's been very, very good. All right, I'm going to go back to this YouTube video because I saw this last night and I thought it was pretty awesome. And I know it's about Ohtani, but Bleacher Report put this video out, and I'm going to put it onto the screen right now. There it is. And it's the umpire cam. So I know we're on radio, but I'm going to try to describe it a little bit. But it's the umpire cam, which means there's a camera on the umpire's mask. And so you get to see the pitch. And we always talk about whether or not umpires are doing a good job. Well, you know what? I was watching this, and I did get most of them right, except for the first one. And so I'm going to start playing this video. If you want to go see it, you can go to YouTube and you could search 97, or you could search at the Skraby Show. Just go to like 52 minutes in or something like that. But I'm going to play it. And so it just basically shows you each pitch when you are umping for Ohtani. And it asks you strike or ball. I said strike. It was a ball. Now, this video just proves to me how difficult it is to actually call these balls and strikes. And I've never doubted that it's difficult to call the ball a strike because it looks really difficult. But this is their jobs. Umpires are paid to do this. And I think that I would really like to do something. And personally, I would like to do something as well, which would be to go out there and try to do things that baseball players do on a daily basis just to see how hard it is. And we should do the same for the umpires. We should have to like stand behind a batting practice or something and call balls and strikes, because I think that we would all know it is not easy to be an umpire. But next year they're going to have ABS and all that stuff. But this is a pretty cool video. Go to Bleacher Report and you can basically call the at bat as an umpire for Shohei Ohtani. Some of them look pretty self-explanatory. Some of them don't. And you can see why a catcher framing a ball is actually very beneficial, because I think the first ball that is thrown in this video is one that I actually thought was a strike, but it was low and it was the ball, and the catcher brought it up, and framed it, which I'm looking at right now. And so they called that a strike when they call it a ball when I call it a strike. So anyway, go to Bleacher Report and try to find this video because it's very fun. It's very fun. There was also a New York Times thing a couple years ago where you would have to be the umpire, and I was not as good at being the umpire in that one. Umpiring is very important, but it's also very difficult at the same time. So don't blame an umpire unless it's Doug Eddings or something, because Doug Eddings sometimes calls strikes and balls depending on how he feels that day. 6:51. All right, we're coming to the end of the show. Blue Jays have two guys on, top of the sixth, still 8-2, no outs. My Halloween show or movie that I'm going to tell you about two things today, because we're coming up on Halloween. As everybody knows, I'm a big horror movie fan. I love scary movies. I love scary shows. But I'm really, right now, I just finished The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix, which is like an 8-episode. It's the same guy who did Black Mass. And it's this, or not Black. Yeah, it was Black Mass. Same guy who did The Haunting of Bly Manor. So these are very good shows, but The Fall of the House of Usher is kind of like it's based off of Edgar Allan Poe's Raven story. I don't know. Is that the name of the story? This is kind of embarrassing. Is it the Raven story, or is it called something else? I really hope it's called the Raven. Good, I had it right. I doubted myself there for a second, but it's kind of like that. It's very fun. It's not so much scary, but there is some Halloween feel to it. So I think that is awesome. Let's see. I'm looking for some comments. Okay. Now, the other one is it's a movie. It's a movie, and I think everybody should watch it. And it's called Talk to Me. It was made in 2022, and here's the overview. When a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits with an embalmed hand, sounds stupid, but it's not. They become hooked on the new thrill and high-stakes party game until one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. Thought this movie was really good. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 94%. Talk to Me is what it's called. Talk to Me. Thank you, KG. I knew it was the Raven. I just forgot for a second.
Gripe.
I mean, what's annoying me today? Seems like a lot of stuff annoys me on a daily basis. But today would be when people tell me I'm wrong. Well, I have two. When people tell me I'm wrong, but have absolutely no proof behind it to show that why I'm wrong or why they're right. Like, it's really easy to be like, hey, you should believe me. I know what I'm talking about. And it's like, where's the proof? Oh, actually, I don't have any. Well, yeah. The actual daily gripe is right now my phone has 13% battery. For the last 2 weeks, I have not been good at charging my phone. So my daily gripe is that I have been constantly playing with low battery on my phone for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And even if I try to charge it, I have to take it off the charger for some reason. It never gets up to. I should charge it at night, but I'm not charging it at night because I charge it in the morning. The whole thing, I think I need to rethink the way I charge my phone, because today I have been charging it here and there, and I'm only at 13%. So I'm going to have to charge it a bunch tonight. That's it for me. Thank you for listening to The Skraby Show. Tomorrow, I do not have one because of Thursday Night Football, but we will have a show from 2 to 4:30. Also, we'll have a new YouTube video for you. So I'll talk to everyone tomorrow.